Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. This is somewhat of an impromptu live stream. I haven't been doing live streams for a while, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. And whether I was going to go live today was going to depend on how I was feeling. So I thought, well, you know what? I don't have wife and kids. I don't have any immediate family. I have a brother who lives in the North Bay. I'll be seeing him on Saturday, and I only see him probably like once a year. And I have two other brothers that live out in the Central Valley, California. We don't talk much. We don't hang much. That's a whole nother story. So I'm going to pour myself. This is a Lagavulin Jazz. Lagavulin Jazz. This is a bottle I brought back from Islay on my first trip to Islay in June 2018. This is bottled at 57.6% alcohol by volume. This is, I believe, if I recall correctly, I think bourbon cask or hogshead cask. Non-age statement. This is one of 4,012 bottles, personally selected by Ian MacArthur. Ian MacArthur is basically a legend at Lagavulin. He retired, I think, this last year. Fernando, how you doing, sir? Merry Christmas, good afternoon, and Merry Christmas to everyone. Glengoyne Legacy, Chapter 2. I have the Legacy number 1 in my glass. That sounds good. And, of course, Lewis tuned in a little earlier. So he retired, and he'd been at the distillery probably close to like 50 years, something like that. So if you visited the Lagavulin Distillery and you did the warehouse tour, which isn't really a tour, they just have a bunch of casks lineup, and you're in a circle around these casks and do a tasting from the cask, all cask strength, all absolutely fantastic. So let me pour. This is the bottom of that's how much is in there. This is the bottom of the bottle. I think. Yep. Probably a little more than, probably about 3 ounces. So I have been working on finishing a few other, got to get the last drop out of there, man. I have been working on a few different Lagavulin Distillery only editions. So this is the Jazz Festival. They have their Jazz Festival in September, and it comes in this fancy black bag. They have the Fish Ale. This is another empty bottle. This is from 2018. It's also empty. I finished this one recently. Now, these bottles have been open for about 5 years or more. A little concerned, how do they, because always the question, do they go bad? And they've held up well. There you go. Dan, thanks for joining. Walker, 21-year-old blended whiskey, blended scotch. So the question is, if you particularly have a collection like this, you're like, oh man, it's been open for a while. I have over 400 bottles. There's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 in whiskeys here. Of course, a lot of these, are open. So there's always the concern, oh no, I've got all these open bottles. Are they going to go bad? Long story short, the answer is no. Unless you're constantly pulling the cork off all the time, like you would at a whiskey bar, they'll be just fine. If you do get below half a bottle, you can always pour it into a smaller bottle and save it that way, or make an infinity. So thus far, these have been really, really, really good. Been open since 2018, somewhere there about. Glenn Farkless, 2014 Christmas edition. Cool. By the way, I got this hat on, but it's really getting my head warm. So once I get too hot, I'm going to take it off. So I've not been doing live streams because I've had some health issues since the end of March. Just before I went back to Scotland for my 4th trip, started having nose blindness, which I thought was from the intensity of blind tasting all the time. I passed the written exam, passed the oral exam for the Master Scotch. Couldn't smell Jack Diddley when I got over there. Really, really struggling. And I was hoping when I go over there, that different climate, that everything would clear up. It did not. Come back to the United States, thought, okay, this is seasonal allergies. It'll go away. Well, that was in March. We're now in the end of December. and I've still got major issues. I've been seeing specialists, been seeing doctors. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. They've been doing all kinds of tests. I'm taking all kinds of medications. I had to do some sleep tests. Turns out this is causing sleep apnea, yada, yada, yada. This Friday, the 27th, I have an appointment to get a CT scan on my head. Last time I saw a doctor, they put a camera up my nose. Good times. And they couldn't see anything. So they're going to do a CAT scan on my head and make sure there's nothing more. But here's the thing is, the being blocked in my head, it feels like, I'm going to take this off. It's just getting too warm. The sinus and pressure is so hard. I mean, it's just like just really intense, but it comes and goes. If it was more than just extreme allergies, then I would think it wouldn't come and go. Like if there was some sort of growth in my head. Anyway, but I'm just self-diagnostic. So Friday, going to get a CT scan to make sure there's nothing worse going on. If it's just CT scan, and nothing comes, if it comes back negative on the CT scan, then I'm going to go to immunotherapy, which basically every week you go get shots, and this could take a couple of years, but eventually after a couple of years, it'll clear it up. In the meantime, I have these moments of clarity. I can have like 4 hours where I'm perfectly clear, and that's when I'm recording my videos. So I just did a 10 highly recommended cask strength whiskeys. That took me about 5 days to record all that because I would have been plowed at the end of that. And I had to only record when I had clarity. So I'm somewhat clear now, not 100% clear now. I'm going to take a sip. So very intense peat, smoke, chocolate. There's a nuttiness, salty sea breeze, caramel, chocolate, Snickers bar. Kind of like if you take a Snickers bar and put it in a microwave, this way I would describe it. Fruit notes is oh, now I can't remember what it's called. It's like a pear, but it's not a pear. It's real hard. Anyway, it'll come to me in a second what it's called. A glazed. I hate it when my brain does this. Anyway, so let's just call pear notes. Pear notes, apple, but the smoke is interwoven really well. 57.6. This is a big boy. Now, here's the funny thing. Quince. Yes. Quince. There you go. Yes. Quince. Only time I've ever had quince is when they're hard. It's not like you can just bite it. You're not like you're going to bite it like a pear. So they're typically baked. You have them for dessert, and then they put like a glaze on it. Really, really good. This is what you get when you go to hoity-toity restaurants. You're still going strong, Eric. I think you're too hard on yourself. Well, thank you. Anyway, so the funny thing about this whiskey, it has a nice medicinal effect. If you have a roughness in your throat and everything else, it helps with that. Unfortunately, I can't drink whiskey at work, and you can't just sit around drinking whiskey all day. It's kind of like, like a cough medicine. You can't. I can't like drink whiskey all day at work. I wouldn't get any work done, and but it does have, in the moment, this soothing effect. So it's very nice. So again, Merry Christmas to y'all. If I were to guess the age on this, it's got to be at least 10 years. It doesn't have any. Oh, here we go. Refill American oak hogsheads and European oak butts. Refill. Let's say refill European oak butts. That's probably a sherry cask, but it's a refill, which means you're not getting all the big sherry notes on it. Bottled in 2017. I bought it in 2018. It doesn't say when it was distilled. So anyway, and of course, right there, this won't make you pregnant. So that's good. a little no pregnancy thing, so it won't make you pregnant, which is always good because I'm fat enough. It is. I don't need to get pregnant. Rudolph, how you doing? Merry Christmas. Is your name really Rudolph, or is this just for that season? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Okay. Talisker 25. Nice. Talisker 18 is like no, or is it 17-year-old? No, Talisker 17-year-old is around is it the 18 or 17-year-old? The Talisker. Come on, should be sitting right here. Talisker 18-year-old. I have the Talisker 18-year-old is a spectacular whiskey, but it's like $170. That's too much money. So I can only imagine the Talisker 25 is just going to be absolutely fantastic. Dan, a Lagavulin rum cask is a good dram. Offer an 11-year-old. So I really like Lagavulin and the Kildalton Trio. So I don't know how familiar people are with various whiskeys. So the southern part of Islay, what kind of curves it goes under, you have Ardbeg at the end of the road, and then you have Lagavulin and Laphroaig. And they're neighbors, and they're all big peated. There's the Kildalton Pass, and there's the Kildalton Cross with the Kildalton Chapel there. So the Kildalton Trio, they're all heavily peated, but they all have a very distinctive character. And I like that because while there is some typicity in terms of Islay, they're different. And Laphroaig, it's just out of the three, in terms of like a 10-year-old, is the most medicinal. Ardbeg has the most muddy sort of character and more limey. And Lagavulin, generally speaking, isn't quite as intense on the smoke and the peat, although it's, in comparison to everything else in Scotland, it is very heavily peated, but not quite, I would say, at the level of Laphroaig. And Laphroaig's a little more seaweedy in character. So I really like Lagavulin, and it seems to me Lagavulin, in terms of a neck pour, tends to have more integrated smoke. It can have more of a softer mouthfeel. Laphroaig, particularly the 10-year-old, takes a little bit more time to get it to open up. So Lagavulin, I think, is a little more approachable. But I find Ardbeg has more variation in, I'm talking about core range, more variation in the core range, because you have the Ardbeg 10, which is bourbon cask. You have the Ardfreg. Have you ever had the Ardfreg? The Ardbeg. Laphroaig and Ardbeg is Laphroaig. I don't know if you knew that or not. So if you blend the two, it's Laphroaig. You have NO, which is PX. You have the Ugadal, which is sherry cask. And then you have Corvrecken, which is French oak and bourbon cask. And they might use some virgin oak in that as well. And then, of course, the Wee Beastie, which is really young, is a bourbon cask and a sherry cask. If you're on a while, I'll try and get back and listen in. Oh, Top Shelf Dustin. Oh, okay. Hey, Dustin, if you're around, that is not a picture of you. I don't know who that is, but that is not a picture of you. If you're back in later, I'll put you can join in if you want. I'll drop a link in and you can join in on the live stream. I have no idea. I'm just shooting the bull. Can't listen in. Other things going on, but Merry Christmas and thanks for going live, Eric. I know holidays can be tough on some people, and it's really great when people do these lives. Yes, I don't have a family and stuff, so I've been on vacation since like the 6th of December, and I don't go back to work till like the 6th of July. I've just got a lot of PTO. I'm going to spend a couple days in Austin, Texas after New Year's. So even though I'm not going to work, I'm up at like 4 a.m. every morning. I don't change my sleep pattern. So it's the same sleep schedule as when I'm going to work. So this morning, so what I've been doing, I've got into wine back in the 1990s when I was in seminary. I've graduated from 2 different seminaries, and I'm actually reviving my theological studies. I have a library upstairs, and so I spent all my free time doing theological studies and writing and stuff like that. And I'm hoping and waiting to this situation to get cleared up, so then I can take the blind tasting exam with the Council of Whiskey Masters. I'll be meeting up with one of the gentlemen who's a master of whiskey with the Council of Whiskey Masters early January, and I'll be sending them an email and let them know where I'm at. So hopefully I can get this fixed, but may take a while going through immunotherapy. Merry Christmas, Eric. Anak 18-year-old. Anak 18-year-old. Nice. Paul M. So in terms of enjoying whiskey off camera, as I said, this is the Lagavulin Jazz Festival, which is now empty. This was a Lagavulin Distillery only edition. This was at 54.1. I finished this one. This one's now empty. This is a Lagavulin 18-year-old official edition. This one's now empty. So I've been going through cask strength whiskeys during my vacation, just a little bit at a time, and enjoying a wee dram and finishing off these bottles. Now I still have, this is a full bottle, unopened Jazz Festival. This is a full bottle, unopened Fish Ale, 2018 Fish Ale. I don't know if I'll open those or to keep those around for collections, or one of these days I'll flip it, or if I croak, then someone will inherit it. So everybody knows I'm a big fan of Ardbeg. I think Ardbeg has, in my personal opinion, the best core range, best consistency. It's hard to describe. You ever like in a mood for a pizza, and getting some stupid frozen pizza is not going to do. It's like you need just a certain high quality pizza, or it could be barbecue, or it could be whatever it is you really, really like. And you just get this itch, and it's like something that's going to satisfy. I have the same thing with Pinot Noir. I love smoked salmon or grilled salmon with a Russian River Pinot Noir. I don't want a Burgundy Pinot Noir. I don't want an Oregon Pinot Noir. I'm sure that they would be fine. I don't want whatever. I want Russian River Pinot Noir or Santa Cruz Mountains Pinot Noir. Those are the two that's just, for me, go really, really well. And when I had some on Thanksgiving, and it's hard to describe. And if you're not a wine fan, if you're not a smoked salmon fan, you don't get it. But you could find something else. It's like the only thing that's really going to satisfy is that particular thing. And I have times in which I'm in the mood for a peated whiskey, and it's the hankering for Ardbeg. And the reason why I've gone through 6 or 7 bottles of Ardbeg 10 is most likely because I don't have to analyze it. I know what it is. And so that's what I'm going to reach for. Even though I've got a gazillions of other whiskeys that I should probably be working on, whether going back to Ardbeg 10, I just gravitate back to the Ardbeg 10. So really, really enjoying these cask strength Lagavulins. Now I would say this, in my top 10 video for 10 more highly recommended cask strength whiskeys, I had the Lagavulin 12-year-old cask strength in there. And I said in that video that it has more oomph, it has more power. It's obviously higher ABV than the 16-year-old. There's more fudge, there's more depth, there's more mouth coating feel. It has a more intense smoke and peat than the 16-year-old. But the 16-year-old, which is only 43% alcohol by volume, and it's probably chill filtered and all that crap, it still has little delicate notes to it that I really, really like. So same thing with this one. This doesn't have the more subtle nuances. That's only going to come with maturation and time spent in the cask. But it's got this heftiness and this deliciousness and thickness. It's thickness. If you have a cask strength whiskey, just try this. Just do this. Or you could chew it. What I'm doing is I'm holding the whiskey on top of my tongue and then pressing it up against the top of my mouth, and it doesn't flow off like water. There's a little bit of a squishiness. There's a thickness to it. And it's that viscosity from the ABV, and then it's not chill filtered. They haven't removed all the oils from it. That it also gives it that nice mouth coating feel. I'm going to grab a teaspoon just real quick. I'm going to put one teensy wincy drop of water in this. I don't want to drown it. I like it neat. And I'm talking maybe one more. Okay, that's enough. A Ralphie moment. Redbreast 12 cask strength, nice. Typical Irish Christmas dram. Yep, but it's delicious. Hope you're all having a peaceful Christmas day, everyone. For me, actually, it's always cold here. So I live next to the ocean. I can see the ocean like right there. We've been having storms. Santa Cruz, which is about an hour south down the coast, they had a big storm, and the Santa Cruz pier got wiped out. Really, really shocked to see that. Hopefully no one was injured. I think a restaurant or something that was on the pier got destroyed. It's out to sea. Really, really shocking. Anyway, so we've been having some storms. It happens this time of year. What was my point? This happens when you get old. You kind of lose your point. Piers, the ocean. Oh, it's cold, the temperature. So in the middle of summer here, a hot day is like 78 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot. But generally, it's like 55 to 65 in the summertime. You go up over the hill in the Silicon Valley or in San Mateo, and you increase by 20 degrees. It's one of the reasons I love living here. So thankfully, it's like close to winter temperatures. In fact, a lot of times it's about the same temperature here as it is over in Islay in the summertime. Although we get more sunshine in the afternoon, we can frequently get a mist or rain here. So very similar to Islay. And the nice thing about that is it puts me more in the mood for peated whiskeys in the middle of summer. Where normally in the middle of summer, I wouldn't be doing peated whiskeys. I'd be more in the mood for bourbon and putting it on ice. So, but when I lived out towards Sacramento and it would be 115 degrees in summer, I wouldn't be in the mood for peated whiskeys. I'm getting more of a milk chocolate character, I would say now. Smokiness is diminished a little bit. And more of a creamy chocolate smell to it. And it's thinned out. Now I'm getting more fruit character. Less chocolate and more fruit. Yeah, more of the lemon and lime and quince. So I like the thickness. I like the mouthfeel. So there's different reasons why you can want to drink a whiskey. You want some spice. It's like you want Indian food or you want Chinese food, or on your pizza you want pepperoni because pepperoni is spicier than, or sausage, a real spicy sausage, or barbecue that's real spicy. So there's different reasons why you'd want a whiskey, and sometimes I want a whiskey for that thickness, for the heft, for that, or sometimes you want the light, delicate, nuanced, fruity notes. The Glen Elgin 18-year-old that was in my recent top 10 cask strength whiskeys is like that, and that's a summer dram as well. So if I wasn't in the mood for something peaty and smoky, and I was gonna have something Christmassy, I would probably go for Compass Box. But I'll get my brain to work. Spice Tree or the the Spectacular. By the way, I've heard they're no longer making those. However, those are still in the store. So I highly, if you're not familiar with it, I'll show it to you. Oh, Extravaganza, that's what it is. So if you've never had this, this is the spice Compass Box Spice Tree. It's got a bit of a glare there. I've heard they're no longer making these. To me, this is like the hallmark of Compass Box. And if they're no more making this, that they're losing their minds. They're still on the shelf. You can still get them. I'm probably going to go buy a bunch just because once they're gone, they're going to be gone. This was the Extravaganza, which is the Spice Tree intensified. Unfreaking believable. For me, if you think of Christmas, like apple pie and peach cobbler and the type of foods that you have, Thanksgiving to Christmas, that's what these remind. They remind me of the fall colors. Sad that they're not going to be making these. I'm probably going to pick some up, and even if I don't drink them, I'll give them away as gifts. Adam, thanks, Adam, for you for. Anyway, Adrian, thanks for tuning in. Music that's an Aaron. I bought this back from the Isle of Aaron, from Aaron Distillery. This they sell, and it's a fundraiser for a music festival. And there's a bottle of Aaron in here. Ta-da! Very, very fancy, very, very schmancy. I'll show you what the bottle looks like. So this is a distillery only. If you ever get to Aaron Distillery, there are a multitude of bottles that they have there that aren't distributed, that are distillery only. They have a lot of them. So if you can ever get to Aaron Distillery, I highly recommend it. Cool. They have a nice cafe there, and you take a little ferry over there. So that's what that is. And behind that, I have a bunch of Aarons. Gotta be careful. I don't want to knock that off. Wow. So I mentioned in a couple of videos, I have these, I call round to it bottles. You see a bottle and everybody's talking about it. I'm busy studying this bottle that everybody's talking about doesn't fit within my study, but I don't want it to come and go, and I didn't have one, didn't get one. So I buy one and I put it on a shelf. Or I'm thinking down the road, or maybe it's a limited release or whatever else. So I have bottles of whiskey that have never been opened, and they've been sitting on my shelf. I'm thinking in 2025, I'm gonna do some of these, the round to it whiskeys. I have a Maker's Mark cask strength. I also have and I don't know, doing videos on them probably wouldn't be much good to anybody. I have bottles that I brought back from Scotland, official editions, distillery only editions, and stuff like that. I'll show you a couple of them. I have a Kalila 13-year-old Pedro Jimenez cask. It's not been opened. I tasted it at the distillery. It's absolutely fantastic. This is at 60.4% alcohol by volume. Not touched it. Now to review it, not going to do much good because it's coming done. Here's another one, a Bamore, hand-filled. I got this at the distillery when I was there in July last year, 2023. This is at 56.7% alcohol by volume. Speaking of Bamore, and I'm not the only one who thinks this, Bamore's core range needs something that's 46% and above. They should even put a cask strength on there. Like Highland Park has a cask strength. All their bottles are 40 and then 43% alcohol by volume. And they're just sort of lackluster. They're nice, but once you taste something from the distillery, a distillery only release or official, you just kind of go, oh man, Bamore, such a fantastic spirit, fantastic casks, but they are shorting their consumer base by not releasing them. Here's another one that's absolutely superb, a Bumor. And Rob, Whiskey in the Six, reviewed this as well. Wait. It's stuck in here. Hold on. The Aston Martin. And I paid, I don't know, $200 for these, and these are now like $1,000 or something ridiculous. This is the Aston Martin 21-year-old. This is a superb whiskey, and it was like either my number one or number two a few years back. But they don't have anything like that in the core range. So anyway, so if someone from Bumor is paying attention, or watching, or listening, which I know they're not, you know. Hey, George, or however you pronounce your name, probably Goodenabend, where you're at. It's got to be like 10:30 at night, somewhere around there. So anyway, Goodenabend. All righty. I'm going to talk about something. I've been debating whether I can do this or not. Yeah, Goodenabend. There you go. So one of the things I think Daniel and I have in common, Daniel Whittington, I say Daniel as if everybody knows who I'm talking about. Daniel Whittington and I have in common is to sort of break down barriers and walls in the whiskey community so that everybody gets along peaceable. We don't have to, and it can be about the whiskey and not be, it's like you can have people who are fans of a football team, and it's this football team against that football team. And that's fine. It's a sport, it's a competition. But you have people who are fans of this football team and they hate this football team. I mean, they hate them. Baseball as well. And it's just a stupid team. It's a company. It's a business. How about friendly competition and sportsmanship? You don't have to hate anybody. And in the same thing in the wine business, and say in the Napa Valley, you got over 400 wineries there, there's always been this sort of thing, hey, we work together, and yes, there is a friendly competition, but if Napa Valley has a great reputation and people come there, it's the number one tourist destination, then the Napa Valley as a whole will have a good reputation, and you don't want any winery in the Napa Valley to have a bad reputation because it brings down the reputation of the entire valley. So you want to get along. And if some sort of pesticide, whatever, phylloxera or whatever, gets into your vineyard, guess what? Your vineyard is next to their vineyard, which is next to the vineyard, and it could wipe out the entire valley. So you want to have a certain amount of cooperation. And so if you're not using your tractor and their tractor breaks down, and this is true out in Lodi or many other wine countries where we have a whole wine community. And then if you have festivals and stuff like that, everybody's participating, then you want to work a cooperative. And Daniel Whittington and the Texas Whiskey Association and, Jared Hempstead over at Balcones and the Iron Root as well, the Licorice Brothers over at Iron Root and other people in the Texas Whiskey Association, they have this sort of cooperative, let's all get along mentality, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Fight for Sounds. Hey, Semper Fi, brother. How you doing? So what we want in the whiskey education field is something similar to that, to where we're not all doing the same thing. We're complementary to each other. We can say, hey, if you want to learn this, I don't teach that. I don't do that. But these are some other great people you can learn from. And they can go the same way. So the Edinburgh Whisky Academy, Moonshine University, the Wizard Academy, obviously, and now there's the Council of Whiskey Masters, which is parallel to the Court of Master Sommeliers, something very, 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 very similar. And I've really enjoyed my time and that time I've spent with people with the Council of Whiskey Masters, and particularly when I was over in Scotland. And so if you're part of an organization, nobody and nothing is perfect. Everything and everybody could use some improvement. Everybody can have an opinion. Yeah, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that, but I think this is good and I think that is good, right? So if you're part of something, whether it's a movement or a group or whatever else, you can either be part of the problem or part of the solution, and you can contribute to the community to elevate it, to make it better, doing it by influence that you're a cool dude, people like you're a contributor, and you're not trying to bring people or anything down. And this is something Daniel and I think, have a lot of something in common. And I can tell you straight up, Daniel and I don't agree on everything. Whoopie frickin' do. I texted him the other day. I said, one of the things about being brothers is you can talk shit to each other and not hurt each other's feelings. you know, and if you're listening and you're friends and you have a dram, Daniel can say something. I'm like, I disagree. No. But then I can go on and go, well, maybe he's got a point. And I can say something, and Daniel can go, well, I think Eric is, I think he's getting a little senile. He's going. But then Daniel also might go, well, maybe Eric's got a point on that. Or maybe I disagree with you on this point, but I disagree with you on those points. That's the way it should be. And that you can say you're playing chess against each other, you're playing tennis against each other, or whatever. You can help each other be stronger and better by your interaction, engaging, and going back and forth. And they can make you better by challenging you to do better. And I'm putting a lot of butter on Daniel's bread. But one of the things with Daniel is, in terms of communication and the approach in interacting with people, I have learned a lot from him on that, because my background is in law enforcement and the United States Marine Corps and rules and regulations. And my background is in higher education and, sweat and blood and tears and studying. I'm actually back in school again. You can think I'm nuts. I'm pursuing what's called a post-baccalaureate, which is not, it's more than a bachelor's degree, less than a master's degree. I've never heard of such a thing. And it's basically business related. I just finished one class. I'm taking another class. It's related to communications. I know I'm a perpetual student. So I got hundreds and hundreds of books. My living room is full of wine and whiskey books. My study upstairs is full of theology books, and I just got books all over the place. So I like to keep my brain active. Let's take another sip. If you are tuning in late, I am drinking the Lagavulin Jazz Festival 2017, bottled at 57.6. All right, 57.6. I'll take a sip of water real quick. Everybody's palate is different. Find reviewers closely matches. Yes. And everybody has a right to their own opinion. Everybody has a right to agree with me, and everybody else has a right to be wrong. That's how that goes. All right. I know that we're Christmas here. All right. So there was an article that came out in the Whiskey Advocate. This is the fall season 2024. And I've been debating whether I want to talk about this or not, do a separate video on it or not say anything about that. What the heck? I'll talk about it. First of all, let's talk about magazines. Magazines, like newspapers, are somewhat of I think going the way of the dinosaur, whatever, by the time you get one of these, whatever is information in here, you can find it online for free and more up to date. Let's get real. It's loads of advertisements. So unless you particularly like those writers, why are you buying this? I like to put them on my coffee table when I'm in an airplane and I'm traveling. I like to bring these. I'll put these like in the back of my laptop computer holder, the case for it, and I can pull it out and so forth. So that's the main reason I get these. Just FYI, the name, this Advocate thing here was stolen. That is stolen. They did not come up with this. Robert Parker, who was a wine critic, he's an attorney. I think he's still alive. He may have passed away. He's an attorney. Another word for attorney is advocate. You may see in a movie or TV show where they got lawyers and the judge referred to the attorney as the prosecutor or the defense as an advocate. Probably mostly the defendant as the advocate. So Robert Parker got into wine in the 1960s on his honeymoon. He then started a wine journal called the Wine Advocate. And what was different from him is he was an independent wine critic who was not in the pocket of the wine industry. All other wine critics were in the pocket of the wine industry. They were not independent. So he was really the first independent wine critic. He also took the American grading system, the 100-point score, and used that in critiquing wines. Before that, there was like a 20-point score. So if you see people using the 100-point score, that comes from Robert Parker. Robert Parker started the Wine Advocate. All right. A friend of mine, he's an advanced sommelier, works for the Wine Advocate. So the Whiskey Advocate, not started by Robert Parker, they took this because Wine Advocate was well known. All right, so that's the origin of the Whiskey Advocate, and this is a business. So let's establish those two things. All right. There is an article in here. I got a paper clip on it. Now, everybody is free to their own opinion. Everybody's free to their own perspective. I'm a free speech fundamentalist. I really believe in free speech. The best response to something that is wrong or you disagree with is a counter argument, not censorship. There are people on the left who want to censor and control what can be said. And now it's being discovered that a lot of what we heard the last few years was total BS. All right, I'm not going to go any further than that. Anyway, so this gentleman, Charles Cowdery, I'll show this to you. Charles Cowdery, we don't need no more masters. All right, so he says, I got an airplane flying overhead. He says the Council of Jedi Masters was the ruling body of the Jedi Order. It consisted of 12 Jedi Masters and was chaired by a Grand Master. Working with the Galactic Senate, the Jedi were guardians of order and justice throughout the galaxy. Take another sip. The Council of Whiskey Masters is something else entirely. Founded in 2019 by Jorn Joey Kleinhans, the Council of Whiskey Masters is a private for-profit business, a subsidiary of the Sommelier Company, a producer of private wine and spirits tasting events, and a provider of wine and whiskey education. Services include advice on wine industry. The Wine Advocate is a business. Okay, so we're talking about a business, talking about another business. Okay, now, for those who don't know, the separation from the Whiskey Vault, from the Whiskey Tribe, is the Whiskey Vault is a nonprofit organization associated with the marketing school. The Whiskey Tribe is associated with the Distillery, and obviously two YouTube channels. And they now have a clear demarcation between the two. Rex is focusing on the tribe, Daniel on the vault, and they've actually segregated the property more. It's very, very, very dangerous to accidentally do this and cross over. You could get in huge trouble with the IRS. So you need a nice, clear distinction between the two. All right. So if you're a business critiquing another business, keep that in mind. The Council of Whiskey Masters competes with other private for-profit businesses, such as us. Hello. They don't say that. That's my adding that. Such as the Moonshine University, which despite the university moniker, is also a private for-profit business. News alert. Okay, I have 3 undergrad degrees, a master's, and a doctorate. Some of those are universities or schools or businesses. Some are nonprofit. So there are schools that are part of the state system, part of the government system, and some of those are nonprofit organization, and some schools and universities are private. Okay, so this is common in the educational business as a whole. What really, I'm going to get ticked off on Christmas. What really ticks me off is when people make statements like this and they act like this is what they're like. And if you don't know, you're not familiar with educational systems, nothing he said here is any different than any other university or any other system or educational system. There are NPOs, there are private businesses, there are some that are owned by distilleries, there are some that are run as independent organizations. Okay, guess what, man? Okay, when I did my video, on this is years ago, going back, talking about the Whiskey Vault, Whiskey Tribe, and the Whiskey Sommelier program at the Wizard Academy and all that. I did research into marketing schools and marketing education, saw what was out there. I did a comparison and analysis between those various other marketing organizations and what the Wizard Academy is doing. And I found them comparable and actually better than what was out there because you're getting whiskey. So they weren't doing anything different than other marketing schools in terms of how much they were charging. Because people are like, holy cow, $4,000. So that's, if you look at marketing schools out there. By the way, some of my education I'm currently doing, it relates to marketing, stuff like that, and business marketing. So nothing they've said here about the Council of Whiskey Masters is unique to the Council of Whiskey Masters. This is common. The Council of Whiskey Masters sells courses and holds exams, but the sizzle, it promotes its advisory board, about 35 names, all well-known industry veterans and journalists. That's a good thing. They give it a patina of authority. That's a swipe. They give it a patina of authority. As I understand it, some are more involved in the business than others, but they're not the faculty and they don't run the show. Really, how much time have you spent with them? How much time have you been involved with them? How much have you engaged with them? And this is a young organization, okay? Grand Master Kleinhans does. Advisory board members do not each adopt a Padawan apprentice to train and help them protect the whiskey galaxy. Really? And how do you know that? What do you know? Have you talked to all of them? Have you asked them? Have you engaged with them? Because I have. Eric, get your blood pressure down. The whiskey, the Council of Whiskey Masters is developing its ranks, who are then passing on to the next generation. It takes time to build up your base and educate. So you have the council, who are then educating and passing on information to, and then examining, and the exams are no joke. They're tough. So then you'll have a level of masters of whiskey, masters of scotch, and so forth, who will then pass on to the next generation. And then that's it grows. This is the same thing that the masters of wine did, same thing that the Council of the Court of Master Sommeliers did, same thing as the Guild of Sommeliers. They're following the same pattern. But this guy, this Charles Cowdery, doesn't tell you that, either because he's hiding it or because he's ignorant or he hasn't asked. Okay, I'm getting a little irked. Merry Christmas, by the way. Take a sip. Deck the halls with boughs of holly. Fa la 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 la. Okay. In the pocket of industry advertisers. Yeah, of course the money's got to come from somewhere. I was invited to join the advisory board in 2019. Therefore, I must know everything. I perceived it as an invitation to lend whatever credibility I may have to a vaguely described enterprise for some undefined future benefit. I declined. A long time ago in a galaxy. Anyway, I'm not going to read the rest of it. Let's just say the rest of the article is not complimentary. Now, everyone has a right to their own opinion, their perspective, but I think you should have an educated perspective. And an educated perspective takes time, and it takes more than what you read online or you hear from somebody else. You have to meet with people, hang out with people, share a dram. Let's hang out, let's talk, and begin with giving somebody or something the benefit of the doubt. Begin there. Do not judge a whiskey by a neck pour. You probably heard me say this 1,000 times. Do not judge a whiskey by a neck pour. Don't judge a people or an organization by first impressions. Okay. Also, I'm going to do a video, my end of the year video. I'm going to talk about tails of bottles. And I'll do a review of a whiskey it'll be the tail of an Ardbeg Etno. And I'll talk about tails versus neck pours in that video. And that'll be in my last video for this year. Anyhow, Hanging AZ. Thanks for tuning in, man. So I've been wanting to talk about that for a while. I don't want to read the whole article because maybe they'll sue me for copyright infringement because I read the whole article. But the rest of the article is basically the same. And I would say it needs more in-depth, the person needs more in-depth exposure, interaction, and engagement. And I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's balanced, and I don't think it's well-informed. And that's my perspective on that. I don't think it's a well-informed thing. And for someone who's also a business, who makes money off of marketing and advertisers, and who is in a dwindling business because the printed media is going the way of the dinosaur, I think it would behoove you to be friends with all these organizations rather than stick your nose up at them. And that's my perspective on that. All right, just comments. I'm jumping up and down in my seat. The article completely pissed me off. Yeah, right. And called for attack for another business. What a joke that magazine has become. They are 100%. Yep. So Matthew, first of all, I'm glad you said that. Thank you. Because then it's not just me. And I, believe it or not, I read that article probably 10 times because I don't want to just have an emotional reaction. I want to read through it carefully and make sure I'm understanding him correctly, make sure I'm taking him in the best light, make sure, maybe, because you can sometimes emotionally respond and then you reread something and you're like, well, I maybe overreacted, particularly emails. Man, so I've learned when you start an email business, let's say it's a Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. That's how you start your weekend on email on a Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a nice holidays. Boom. We're having this issue. Or I noticed that this needs to be corrected. If there's any way I can help, or if you have any questions, let me know. So you start polite, you get to the heart of the issue, and then you end polite. Does that take more time? Yes. It takes thoughtfulness, but you'll find yourself in less meetings having to backtrack what you said because you were misunderstood or you misstated something and you didn't piss people off. I sent, just a couple of weeks ago or whatever, I sent Daniel a text. Very polite. I gave him some insight. I was very careful. It's what brothers do. And my intention is to mean the best. Yes, I can be a dick. Anybody can be a dick. I shouldn't use that word on Christmas, but I did. But you mean it well, you say it well, and when you know someone's intentions and you get along and you can still go, yeah, I don't know about that, man, and still get along, then that's good. In fact, you would find that some other organization might say, hey, a good place to start or something I really enjoy is the Whiskey Advocate. Hey, you know what? We might consider maybe we should advertise for our educational programs in the Whiskey Advocate. Or maybe we should have as a guest speaker someone from the Whiskey Advocate, and on and on. And the opportunities and the bridge building that are possible have been lost with that article. I think he screwed up. And if I was the general editor, I'd say, dude, what are you doing? This is not helpful. I don't think it's accurate. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's balanced. See, because the thing is, let me take this up. Let's say I finally get my nose, head and cleared up, get my lungs cleared up. By the way, all these issues I'm having, it's causing sleep apnea, which then it screws up my sleep, which then if you don't get good sleep, it affects you mentally. So I tend to during my vacation, I'm taking naps in the afternoon. All right, I don't want to get back in that again. Where was it going with this? Anyway, so I think there should be more cooperation, more neighborliness, and even if I disagree, I should be able to, if I develop good relationships with people, say at the Wizard Academy or Edinburgh Whiskey Academy, big fans of Edinburgh Whiskey Academy. I recently did a video on their American single malt. Yeah, the American single malt. This is nothing I'm doing. I'm doing this American single malt program. Personally, I think it's their best program, unless you can actually go to the academy and do the diploma in single malt Scotch, actually there in Scotland. I think the American single malt class is actually the best produced, but that makes sense because how you start something, you get better and better and better and better at it, and how you make online education. The American single malt education program is done extremely well. I think it's the best thing that they produced. And Daniel was involved. Daniel does some of the intro stuff. Daniel went into some intro on that. So if you haven't, and I learned tons. I took a ton of notes on that. Really, really great stuff. Anyway, so for the sake of argument, I can't think of anything with the Edinburgh Whiskey Academy that I disagree with. But just for the sake of argument, let's say this. Because I've developed a good relationship with them, they like me, I like them, I benefit from them, I could say, have you ever considered doing this instead? That's a better way to you shouldn't do that. Or this was wrong. Or that kind of approach. You can go back and say, I hear what you're saying. I like what you're doing, but have you considered this? And this is how I approach. I deal with this. I'm in management. I deal with this at work almost every day. And I gotta blow my nose. And I deal with some of the smartest people on the planet, I think. Some of the most, not scientifically smart, artistically smart, super nice, super, super nice. And they have a mission and a goal that they want to accomplish. My goal there is not to be a speed bump or a hindrance to accomplishing what they need to accomplish, but to make sure they are within the guidelines that were supposed to be followed and kept on track so that we can meet as a team, accomplish this mission together. And so I will say, well, I see what you're trying to do, but let's try it doing it this way. And they can, and I also listen, because we got two ears and one mouth. I also listen, and they'll say back to me, even though I'm in my lane and I'm in my field, and this is my area of expertise and authority. Well, what about this? Excuse me, with that, and this, and what it did, and I go, okay, let me talk to someone who's further up the chain. I'll talk to them, and if they're okay with it, then I'm okay with it, and then we'll try it your way. You know, and then they don't see me as a hindrance, but a help. That they realize my intentions are for us to accomplish the goals and the missions we have. And if you can see the whiskey community as a whole globally, that we have these goals, these missions, and these things we want to do, and we may have different opinions and perspectives and so on and so forth, and yet we should still be on good terms and get along well, then let's go to each other and deal with each other in terms of best intentions, not with an attitude of suspicion. I think I just swallowed a beard hair. That happens sometimes. You blow your nose, and then a mustache or beard hair goes in your mouth. It's kind of gross. Sorry. Comes along with the trade. I'm sorry. Anyway, and that's and all humanity needs to work together more. Yes, and that's the meaning of Christmas. Eric, what you started with this off right in saying how you elevate allwhiskey.com and not try to take shots and tear it down. Are you talking about Horst learning? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about Horst learning? I have no problem with Horst, and I like what they're doing. I have benefited from them. The only thing about Horst I can't stand is swishing and the mouth noises. But that's not just Horst. There are a lot of other people. I not in my older videos, but in my newer videos, I actually go in, and if I'm making noises, I go and I edit those out. And you have to look for those little moments, especially since I've been having these respiratory issues. So I don't know. So are you saying how you elevate allwhiskey.com and not try to take pots and tear it down? If that's what you're talking about, then yeah. But if you're talking about whiskey.com, Horst Learning, I have no problem with them. I think what they do is great. So both in English and German. I make jokes about Horst. I don't try to tear him down. We should also not take ourselves too seriously. And hey, Jack, how you doing? Not take ourselves too seriously. Be willing to joke. I'd spend more time making jokes about myself and self-deprecation than anybody else. And I can take a joke. If you're going to be a whiskey tuber, you're going to be online, you got to have a thick skin. Don't take yourself too seriously. I mean, this is whiskey. Did you do a tasting of Glendronach? Not tonight. I've been to Glendronach Distillery. I have a hand-filled bottle that I did from Glendronach. I have a whole bunch of Glendronachs I've done. By the way, if you ever want to know if I talk about a particular whiskey, in the YouTube search engine, YouTube is the second largest search engine next to Google. Just type in Eric Waite, ERIKWAIT, and then type in the name of the distillery, Glendronach, Springbank, Glengoyne, Ardbeg, whatever, and any video that I've done on that distillery will pop up. So just put Eric Waite and then whatever the name of the distillery is, and it'll pop up. That's how you can know if I did a bottle or I've covered that. And it'll show you all the Glendronachs that I've done. So that's a tip on how to use the YouTube search engine. So I watch a lot of whiskey tuber content. So if I'm going to review or talk about a particular bottle, let's say Glendronach 12-year-old, I'll search Glendronach 12-year-old, and then I'll watch those YouTubers that I know well and their perspective, particularly Scott and Bart. It's Scotch Test Dummies. I'll watch The Vault. If it's Springbank, obviously I'm going to watch Jeremy, Sipper Social Club, and Rob Whiskey in the Six, of course, Ralphie and others. But if you want to know if any whiskey tuber, type in Whiskey in the Six and then type in Springbank, and then it'll show you all the videos that Whiskey in the Six Rob has done on Springbank, or the Whiskey Vault, or Ralphie, or the Whiskey Dictionary, or the Whiskey Dick, or anybody else. Just type in what the name of the channel is. And this is why, if you're going to start a YouTube channel, it's best to have a unique name. So First Fill Whiskey, right? That's one of the most clever names for a channel. There's a lot of channels out there. The Whiskey Dude, the Whiskey Guy, the Whiskey this, the Whiskey that. You know what? You're going to get lost on all the gazillions of, I know I'm getting off on another tangent, on all the gazillions of whiskey channels out there. Come up with something unique for your name, and then people can actually use your name, which is why I basically branded my name, Eric Waite. If my name was John Smith, I would not do John Smith Whiskey Status because John Smith is too common of a name. All right. I should be done with this by now. So I need to lose some weight. I've been avoiding all goodies during the holidays, which has been difficult. Right now, I really wish I had a piece of chocolate. I'm not. So here's something I disagree with Daniel on in the whiskey in the whiskey school. I am not into food and whiskey pairing. Not into it because I'm a wine guy. If I'm looking at food and looking to pair a beverage with it, I'm thinking wine, not whiskey. I am not a food and whiskey guy with the exception of chocolate. I'm also not a chocolate and wine guy, except maybe port. That would probably be the only exception. If I'm going to have chocolate, I'm going to want to reach for a peated whiskey. And I don't have any chocolate on me right now. And it's a good thing that I don't because I'm trying to lose. I need to lose some weight. But right now I am really, and it's Christmas Day. I'm really killing for some chocolate right now. And I have none. And now I'm like a drug addict looking to see if I happen to have some hidden somewhere, but I don't. Anyway. Hey, Ty, thanks for tuning in. He has everything over his shoulder. I have bottles over there, and I got bottles over there, and I got some bottles on the floor. So quite a bit. All right, so there's an example of something whoopie-doos. What do you think Daniel gives a rat's ass that I'm not into whiskey and food pairing? You think he cares? No. Eric, he goes, okay, Eric's a wine guy, and so when he thinks of food pairing, he thinks of wine. So that's Eric. That's the way it is. Now, not that big of a deal. But if you're gonna do the whiskey som training, they require you to do a whole thing, and it's part of the level 2 exams. And I'm sure it's probably the level 3 and so forth. I've done the first 2 levels. They do a whole thing on whiskey and food pairing, and when we had to do that, I was just like, I'm not into this. So anyway. Time for rum and Coke. No, hold on. Time for rum and I'm not a rum guy. I know Ralphie likes it, and Richard Amaro is really into it. I'm just not. I have rum. It's okay. It just doesn't ring my bell. True fallout shelter. Actually, if we had a bomb get dropped or a major earthquake, we had a 7.0 earthquake off the coast not too long ago. If I had a 7.0 here, all this would be gone. The building itself would probably collapse. The house, I have a 4-story house. The whole thing would probably collapse. I'm all out of Woodford. Oh, speaking of Woodford reminds me of Waterford. I'm going to talk about Waterford for a minute. Where is it? I got a bottle of Waterford here somewhere. Oh, there we go. So I've only have one bottle of Waterford. I would like to visit I would like to go to Ireland, depending how things are going. I would like to go to Ireland this next year. And I'd like to visit Waterford. If you haven't heard, I can't remember what the term is. If you know what the term is, put it in the. They didn't go bankrupt. It's like a form of bank. It's like bankruptcy. They didn't go out of business. There's a term for it. And it's a unique system. So basically, it's as if you're basically sort of financially going bottom up. And I want to give my 2 cents opinion on this. Yeah, there you go. Thanks. Receivership, right. So I think this is a unique UK or European thing. We don't have that here. But basically is you're not necessarily out of business per se, but financially you're not doing well. And I think your stockholders or whatever, basically someone's going to probably come along and buy it. In the meantime, it's as if they're out of business. So I had this one bottle. This is an early release. My impression was high quality, too young. If you're not familiar with Waterford, what Waterford was doing is essentially trying to apply wine principles. Now I'm getting too warm. Wine principles to whiskey production and focusing on terroir. And I had Jim on from Whiskey Novice, and we talked about this. Long story short, yes. Long story short, you can try the various new makes from barleys from different fields and tell the difference. But statistically, the profile of a matured whiskey at 70, 80% or more of the character comes from the cask. So the only way you're going to maintain the unique distinctiveness of those particular fields is if you keep them young. That's number one. Number two, from a business, you need a core range. You need something that is a go-to that people are going to go back and buy another one. For example, Ardbeg. Ardbeg has a core range. I went through the whole core. I mentioned all their core range earlier in this episode. And then they have the committee release, and they have whatever other special releases. This is what Waterford should have done. They should have developed a core range that were knowable, predictable, and you could go back to it knowing it would still exist. Scotch Malt Whisky Society, for example, is a unique independent bottler in that they buy casks or they buy spirit from distilleries, put them in their own casks, and then they bottle it cask strength. Once that cask is gone, it's gone, and you can't go back to it. There's no core range, and they don't distribute. It's by club membership, and you have to pay money to be in a club. So, fantastic whiskeys, but you got to pay to play. So, you can't run a distillery like that because there's so many releases and so many oddballs. Once I finish, I'm getting ready to finish an Ardbeg N.O., I'm then going to go get another bottle of Ardbeg N.O. It may not be exactly the same, but it's going to be basically the same. Same thing with Ardbeg 10s or whatever else. You need to develop customer loyalty, have go-to products that they're going to want to come back for. Because otherwise, what you're doing is essentially a science experiment, which constantly has things which, unless you're going to, people, and so that's number one. Number two is the whiskeys were interesting from a nerd perspective, interesting, but 90% of the Scotch whiskey industry, or of, let's say Scotch, is blended Scotch. And of course, they're Irish, not Scotch. But let's just say the odds of the statistics are the same. If 90% are blends and not a single distillery, single malts, then you're already, by doing single malts, catering to sort of the elite 10%. And if you don't have a core range, but your devoted fans are going to, I really like this, whatever. The Aaron, 10 years old. Springbank, 15-year-old. Glendronach, 12. Whatever. And people know it is what they're going to want to go back to it. even if they've developed say a fan base for Octomore, and you have different editions of Octomore, Bruichladdich, you know what? Yeah, there's differences in the Octomores, but it's like a rock and roll band. You're a fan of this rock and roll band, and they have different albums, and there are differences in their albums because they got new songs, but you're a fan of that band. One of my favorite bands is called Alter Bridge. Mark Tremonti and Miles Kennedy. They're the guitarist. Miles Kennedy is the lead vocalist. Big fan, and their albums are different, but I like all their music. Some I like more than others. But if they came up with another album, I would buy it just because I'm a fan. And the variations and styles and everything that they do in the music. Same thing for a distillery. You need to have something that people can sink their loyalty into, and that they're going to want to go back for. If everything's so unique and so different, I'm not buying another one, and particularly since these bottles are extremely expensive. So, if you wisdom from the business side, here's our core range. These are our base. We're doing bourbon cask strength. We're doing sherry and bourbon cask. We're doing sherry cask, and we're doing a peated. We're doing, but constant, maybe single line. Just like Bruichladdich does this, and Kilchoman does this. They have their Islay malts, the ones that are just made from barley, just from Islay, right? So that's a distinctive. If you want to lean into the terroir thing, and Bruichladdich does this, and Kilchoman does this. And Springbank does this. Springbank does the local barley, and there are people who are fans of the local barley. All right, so you can do that kind of thing as a one-off, but you can't do every bottle you have like that. That gets ridiculous, and that's where they screwed up. You would have such a minute fan base that it's not going to work. All right. If you want something, you want to be able to get back to exactly. Because what you want, you don't want customers, you want repeat customers. You don't want customers, you want repeat customers and people who are a loyal fan base. I'm getting sun's coming in through the window over there, which is reflecting off the ocean and is blinding me. So I'm now getting blinded by water coming in off the ocean, and then it bounces off my floor. So I got to shut the door. Getting blinded by the sun coming off, bouncing off the ocean, and then bouncing off of my floor. Anyway, is there any bottle of Waterford, Eric, single malt farm, where they use only one type of barrel in the same pre-treatment like second fill bourbon to cask? I don't know. And actually, here's the funny thing. So I've tried other Waterfords, like at the Vault down in Texas. The best ones were the cuvées. A cuvée is a blend. So in a cuvée, you're not emphasizing the particular field. It's a blend of fields. Hello, if you know something, if you're a wine guy and you're trying to bring wine concepts into the whiskey field, you can't stay field specific. Yes. So up in the Napa Valley, they're called Beckstoffer. And Beckstoffer doesn't own a winery. They own vineyards. And there's Beckstoffer vineyards in the Napa Valley and up in Lake County. And then there are wineries in the Napa Valley that will buy grapes from one of the Beckstoffer vineyards, and each Beckstoffer vineyard has a different name. And then they'll produce, let's say this is Robert Mondavi. The Beckstoffer vineyard, Okay, this is Robert Mondavi, Cabernet Sauvignon, Beckstoffer vineyard, a Takalon, or whatever. Or actually, Takalon's a whole nother vineyard. Anyway, but you get the point. So you could do something similar to that, so that people go, oh, I like that particular field, but typically bourbon cask. All right, so that's basically um, the rise and fall of, in my opinion, my perspective, I would say my professional opinion, educated opinion as to what, and there could be more than that, more than that. But from a business perspective, even from the beginning, I saw this at the anybody who sometimes here's the problem with people: you can be so close to something, you're blind. Imagine if I'm reading like this. Imagine I'm reading like this, right? You need to back up. You need to back up and get a bigger perspective. And if you're so close to your own stuff and you're not paying attention to why things work in the world of whiskey, why things work in the wine industry or any other industry, this is why this distillery has succeeded, because they do this so well. Whether you're talking about big brands that are owned by, excuse me, Diageo, why? Because they've done this so well. And you have to pay attention to not just the nerd stuff, but the fan base stuff and also the general market, if you're going to be economically soluble. And so you got to do more than just super nerdy. That's exactly what I didn't understand about the bottling policy, right? Until the new make can be identifiable, yep. But when do you use multiple casks in different uses, and how much terroir do you lose? So the more hands-on manipulation there is, this is true of wines and whiskeys, the less expressive it is of its terroir. So if you hand harvest grapes, hand sort, and do everything by hand in the wine industry, and you own your own vineyards, so you're managing the vineyards throughout the year, the more reflective it is of the particular place and the vintage. If you're sourcing grapes, and so you're not in control of the vineyards, then you lose one step in the process and the management and oversight of the vineyards, so you're buying grapes. And the more things are done by machine, because a machine is not all that selective, it just mass harvests grapes, then the less nuance there is in the grapes. So the more hands-on, now, the more hands-on you get, the more expensive because it's more labor intensive. Or you spend millions of dollars on special sorting, multi-million-dollar sorting machines that individually analyze each individual grape and sort that way. Those do exist. Opus One has one of those. So take that simple, now take it over to whiskey. Whiskey or any spirit is more manipulated than any wine. So you have the primary, secondary, and tertiary characteristics of a whiskey. Primary is going to be the grain or the barley, its sense of place. And then the secondary is production. Production beginning with milling. The type of mill you use, hammer mill or rotor mill, can make a difference. And look at Inchdarney versus other Scotch distilleries. And then whether you're doing rake and plow, or my brain's going blank, I'm getting tired. Louder, right? Whether you're doing open top or closed, whether you're doing wood or steel. I'm just talking. I'm just talking mash now. You're talking fermentation. Now it's going to fermentation. What kind of yeast? What's the rate of fermentation? Are you doing a 48-hour fermentation? Are you extending to 72 or longer? Because you're going to get more fruity characteristics if you go longer. Are you using native yeast? Are you using Saccharomyces cerevisiae, a brewer's yeast? I haven't even got to distillation yet. I'm just talking mashing and fermentation. Now let's talk distillation. What's the speed of your distillation? What's the shape and size of your still? Is it direct fire, like Springbank has direct fire and coil, or Glenfiddich uses direct fire? or using a heated coil. That makes it. What's the angle of your line arm? How much copper intake you're gonna have? Man, we haven't even got to the casks yet, and each one of these things I'm mentioning are different little tweaking to the spirit, right? Okay. Then we're talking worm tub condenser versus shell and tube condenser, and what's the rate of speed of condensing and the temperature of the water in the condensers. I just added a whole bunch more differences between the two different condensers. It's not just shell and tube versus wash tub. It's the rate of the speed of the condensers. How much copper contact do you have? And is your shell, if you're shell and tube, is your shell and tube condenser on the outside of the distillery, which is going to be affected by the temperature outside, or is it inside the distillery? Look, I haven't even got to the casks yet. Just look at how many little things I've mentioned. Okay, now we're going, okay. Now we're going to go into maturation. Okay, let's just take sherry cask. Are you using Quercus alba or which is American oak, which is traditional for sherry in Spain? Or are you using a European oak? Okay, first fill, second fill. Are you using bourbon cask? Are you using virgin cask? Are you using a combination of sherry and bourbon casks? Are you using a rack warehouse, which has fluctuations in the temperature? Or you use a dunnage, which has dirt floors? And now we haven't even brought in time yet. Time. And of course, peated or unpeated. And what's the ppms on the peat? It gets more complicated. And where are you getting your peat? Is this an Islay peat or is this an inland peat? Okay. And what are you peating it to? Are you using 100% peated barley? Or are you mixing peated and unmated barley? And then we're talking, and then your cuts. How are you doing your cuts and your hearts and your heads and your tails? And how many phenols are you maintaining with your cuts and your tails? Dude, can you see? I mean, I'm going this off the top of my head. I'm not even going from notes. Can you see how many differences there are? And you're going to talk to me about wanting to maintain a sense of place, a terroir, just from where the field is and the barley? Good luck. Good luck. Good luck with that. It's a nice idea, but unless you're selling new make spirit and people are going to sit around drinking new make spirit or unbelievably extremely young whiskeys, you're losing it. Okay. And we get to try them all. Okay. Balblair 99 on the top table bar. That sounds good. I have a Balblair. I have a Balblair 99 right up there. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. All right. So, hey, it's Christmas. We've been at this for almost an hour and a half. And man, I'm actually enjoying this because this is good for me because I am having to recall and respond to questions and think off the top of my head. So this is actually good for me because if you don't stay in a subject, you can begin losing it. So one of the things I'm doing with my theological studies, I'm reviving my study of Hebrew and Greek, which if you don't stay in a foreign language, you can lose it. So I'm enjoying studying that. I've been hoping that first fill, what's his name would come back. I know I'm getting top shelf. I've been hoping top shelf would come back. I'd like to have him jump in, get his thoughts on all this. So, as a whiskey geek, I totally appreciate Waterford and what they're trying to do. I wish there was someone they would listen to and someone would have said, hey, Mark Rainier, Have you thought about this? One of the things you got to have, and the thing is, you can have so much money that you don't listen to anybody, or have so many degrees that you think you don't have to listen to anybody. This is my business. This is my, I'm not going to listen to you. If you're humble and you're willing to listen, and you have friends who are willing to tell you the truth, even though it may hurt your feelings, then someone should have come along to Mark Rainier and said, dude, I think we're going to have problems. There are a lot of rock stars and movie actors who do really stupid things. Let's take Justin Bieber. When Justin Bieber became famous, I knew he was on a trajectory to a downfall. When you have a kid who's making $750,000 a year or whatever, young, dumb, he's going to do something stupid. And thankfully, I think he's got his life turned around, but not until after he's already been covered with too many tattoos. But he's done a lot of stupid things. And I'm not picking on Justin. I'm just saying that's the way it is. And he was surrounded by people giving him bad advice. A lot of Michael Jackson, same thing. There are people who should say, hey, Michael, you're on a suicide route with this stuff. Or anybody else who's seriously doing drugs or whatever. Or with your business. Someone come along and say, hey, you know what, dude? And know that they mean your best and you're willing to listen. Had a guest on, Rob Galt from Scotch and Whisky. He's been posting every day shorts on Proverbs. He does Bible and whiskey. And his shorts videos on Proverbs. Proverbs are about wisdom. I've been every morning I wake up and I watch them. I'm really blessed by them. They're really, really great. Right. No compraste. I have no idea what that is. One of the non-purchase zone of the bottles I regret not buying was the beginning of my journey was a vintage Balblair, 2005, 2008. Anyway, alrighty. So I just finished. If you're watching, I just finished the Lagavulin Jazz. Earlier on vacation, I finished this Distillery edition, and I finished the Lagavulin Official Edition 2018. I'm going to pour one more, and maybe I'll keep this going for a little while longer. What do I want to have? So I finished all the ones that, excuse me, bottles I want to finish. What I'm going to go back to is, this is a more 18-year-old. I should drink more water. Also, I need to get into another glass. Hold on. Christmas time is here. So I hope everyone had a great Christmas. I don't have many kids. I have a large fake Christmas tree that actually looked pretty real, and it's got snow, and I didn't drag it out of the garage. I just didn't feel like doing it. So I just have a little fake Christmas tree about this big with lights on it that I have down in my living room. But more 18-year-old official edition I picked up in July last year. Bottled at 52.8% alcohol by volume. Matured in Oloroso and PX casks. So if you ever go to Islay, even if you don't do a tour, stop by the Bamor shop and pick up, if you can, a fish ale. And if they don't have the fish ale, they also have this, which has not yet been opened. These are the hand filled, and these are cask strength as well. This is at 56.7. At least pick up one of these. And you'll realize Bamor has such great potential in what they can produce. The other thing is, from a marketing perspective, you have the big peated whiskeys of the Kildalton trio, Ardbeg, Laphroaig, and Lagavulin. And then you have big peated whiskeys from Coleman are fairly hefty. And the Port Charlotte's from Bruichladdich and the Octomore from Port Charlotte's from Bruichladdich are pretty hefty. What Islay needs to flush out the profile is something that's a very moderate peat, and that is Bowmore, low to moderate peat. It fills a needed niche in Islay whiskeys, and it does it very, very, very well. The problem is, and they should even have, a 43, a 40-43 for the newbies. All right, I'm not against that. I get it. Okay, a 10-year-old, 43% ABV, and then 46. Okay, let's get some 46s in there, and then a cask strength or something like that. Right? That's how I would do it. So you're meeting people at different levels in different places, right? And they're known for the sherry casks. I can't recall. I don't think they do any strictly bourbon. They go bourbon, sherry cask, and sherry cask. So this is Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez. It is rich. I'm going to blow my nose again. Sorry. Wow. It is rich. Chocolate, dark plum, raisins, really interwoven smoke and chocolate. Really nice spice, cinnamon, fudge. Wow. It's really, really balanced and intertwined with the smoke and the dark fruit character of the PX, which is really nicely counterbalanced by the Oloroso. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's Andrew Jefford. Yeah, so I wish Andrew would come up with an updated version of his book. I've read the book. Actually, I went to France with Andrew Jefford, believe it or not. We went to Bordeaux and toured a bunch of chateaux. Went to For the First Gross over in Bordeaux, France. So yeah, Andrew Jefford, he's a marvelous writer, fantastic writer, but his book needs to be updated. I mean, even though things are out of date, it's still a fantastic book. I've read it a couple times. He just stylistically, he's a great writer. I write 100 pages a month at least. But stylistically, he's just a superior writer. I really wish he would update that book. Anyway, this is the fish ale. This is the 2018 fish ale. If you know what fish ale is, it means it's Gaelic. It means Festival of the Island. The fish ale started off as a music festival. Then the distilleries got involved and they basically took it over. Now it's more of a, they still have music, but now it's much more of a, known as the whiskey thing. It's in May every year. I've never been to fish ale. I'm not into big crowds. I probably wouldn't go just because I don't like the crowds and the hassle of trying to find a place to stay and yada, 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 yada. The hotels are sell out over a year in advance. So, but this Oloroso and PX. Oh man, yeah. And silky. And the thing is, silky of course, I've already had some whiskey, at 52.8, which is not crazy high ABV, 52.8. No burn, silky, nice coating mouthfeel. It's velvety. I'm not talking mouth textures. So there's aromas, flavors, structure, mouthfeel, development, front, middle, finish. PX is super sweet and is super dark. And if you can combine Oloroso and PX, you can bring like a real nice balance between the two. Oloroso, you're going to get more of your dried black fruit notes, fig, dates, raisins. PX, you go on chocolate covered raisins, and you get almost like maple syrup. You're getting real dark and real dark. So Pedro Jimenez and PX play well together and sort of counterbalance. There is a bottle called, is it Talisker? The Distiller's Edition. Yeah. The Talisker. So this is Talisker Distiller's Edition. And if you can see there, it says double matured in Amoroso wood for a richer, rounded flavor. So I don't know if you can see that. Amoroso, you see that? There's no such thing. Well, really, there's no such thing as Amoroso sherry. So what the heck is Amoroso? Amoroso is Oloroso with PX added to it. That's what Amoroso is. So I've never had Amoroso sherry itself. I've never seen it on the shelf. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Maybe they don't export it to the United States. So basically, PX is thick. I have bottles of PX. It's so thick, it's not something I'm going to sit around and drink. So it's used, although people do drink it as it is, it's used as a sweetener into sherry. So all sherries are made from the Palomino grape, Fino, Amontillado, Oloroso, Palo Cantado, and then PX, Pedro Jimenez, is made from Pedro Jimenez. And Pedro Jimenez most of it comes from the Monte Morales region, and not from the Jerez region. But they can import, bring it in, a so-called sherry. And so you take a little, you can adjust your Oloroso, make it a little bit sweeter, and just by putting a little bit of PX into it. So that's how PX is often used. Spice kicks in about 3/4 of the way back. There's like a maple syrup character to it. There's a chocolate character to it. There is like a fig compote character to it, and definitely a chocolate covered raisins. The only time I've really had chocolate covered raisins when you go to the movies, and I think like people get popcorn. I think my dad would get like bonbons or chocolate covered ice cream, and I would get raisinets. Oh, and then there's goobers, which are chocolate covered peanuts. I'd get raisinets. It has that chocolate covered raisinette character. But this is a whiskey. Wow. And look at, man, I don't know if you can see that. The legs on this. Yeah, you probably can't see that. I don't know. It's got some serious legs going on there. This is a whiskey, and this is one of my favorite things to do. In the living room, got the fireplace on, maybe watching a movie, maybe watching Whiskey Tuber videos, maybe you're reading books. And this is off to the side. And you're reading a book or you're watching something. Every once in a while, you reach over, enjoy the nose, take a slight sip. And you just savor it. Enjoy the whole ride. And something like this, if they got this much, it can last you over an hour. And this is about quality over quantity, and it's not about getting hammered. It's about enjoying the ride and the experience of it all. And if there's a lot of whiskeys I would not buy. If I don't buy whiskeys because it's what everybody's searching after. And I know if you're a whiskey tuber channel and you're trying to build a channel, you tend to do what everybody can find and buy and get a hold of, because that's what people are searching for. But if I were just going to buy whiskeys, there's a lot of off-the-shelf bottles I would never buy or never buy again. And I of the 400 bottles in here, I could trim this down to 100 or less that are just the ones that you could spend a lifetime on, just savoring them and the development of them. And these are the whiskeys that if you and I were hanging out, let's say you came over here, we might be talking about something and then we'd try this. And next thing I know, this would grab our attention and this would be the conversation that we would have. This would be the conversation starter. This would be what is driving it. And we would talk about this and that. I'm getting this, I'm getting that, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. And maybe it would recall them, hey, have you ever tried this? And we talk about other whiskeys that may be similar in quality and profile and that we really, really enjoyed. This is why if you can get to Islay, these are the things you want to search for. If you were to buy these on the secondary, obviously you're going to buy 2-3 times what they're going to get at the distillery. But this is why not only visit Islay, but go back to Islay and just, if you're not from Scotland, if you ever go to Scotland, you haven't been there, there are a gazillion you're going to go, I've never seen it, never heard of it, never seen it, never heard of it. It's not hard to find. You don't buy anything that you can buy at home from a distillery. Buy distillery only releases, their cask strength, special bottling, stuff like that, that you're not going to get at home. And if you didn't, then they're out of that one. No whoopee deal. What? No big deal. Because guess what? Excuse me, I'm holding back burps here. Burps. Because there's going to be something else. Maybe you can't get this one, but there's a gazillion others that have come and gone or that will come and go that are just as good. One of the most memorable whiskeys I ever had, it was the 2018 Bunnahabhain Moyne Oloroso. It's still today, now from memory, you could probably still hunt around and find it. The Bunnahabhain Moyne or Moyne Oloroso, one of the best whiskeys I ever had. Or at least it had the biggest impression. I remember buying the bottle. I brought it with me to Kansas. Scott and Bart had like a 5-year anniversary. And then I gave the remainder of the bottle to the Scotch 4 Dummies because I think Mark was there and Drew was there. I said, here, take this back home and share this with the others because it was so good. I couldn't hoard it for myself. I wanted it to be shared and I wanted to enjoy them enjoying it. The fact that they got to enjoy it as well. Palo Cantado, Oloroso, Palo Cantado, and PX dry and sweet. It's a good combination for a balanced taste. Yeah. I've never seen PX. Palo Cantado is a rare type of sherry. Only about 2% of sherry is Palo Cantado. I've never seen those three combined. And Palo Cantado is my favorite type of sherry. But you can still, that being said, you can pick one up for less than $50. That's really, 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 really good. Right now, in fact, in stores here, Glenmorangie, I might go pick one up. Glenmorangie has a Palo Cantado cask. I should probably go pick one up before they disappear. Because I like Glenmorangie. But Palo Cantado is really, really good. Tasted blind. Most people probably wouldn't know the difference between Palo Cantado and Oloroso. Just saying. So, This will be the first year I'm not doing a top 10 for 2024. I've done 2 videos, top 10 cask strength whiskey videos, because there isn't any. I mean, I can go through all the whiskeys I've reviewed and then score them, but there isn't any whiskeys that I have reviewed that really stand out from 2024 that I wouldn't want to make a top 10 list. So I'm just not doing one for this year. I might do a whiskey of the year, just a single whiskey of the year. And then I said on New Year's Eve, I'll post an end of the year bottle review of the tails of Ardbeg NO, because I'll talk about tails of a bottle and the difference between neck pours and tails, because I think it's an important topic that people don't talk about and people have concerns about the length of time at which a Glenmorangie, Glenmorangie. In fact, I saw it on, I'll tell you where they got it. Hold on. Yep. And I'll show it to you. Yep, here we go. So I got a glare on there. Glenmorangie, Palo Cortado, Barrel Select, Single Malt Scotch Whiskey, available for $85. And I don't like average. They're not paying. This is Total Wine and More, $85. So there you go. Was 97. They brought it down to 85. So I will probably go pick one up. And they have it in stock at in San Mateo. I don't know what the ABV is on it. I'll probably go pick one up. I've taught a couple classes down there at the Wizard Academy on sharing cherry cask finished whiskeys. I don't know if I'll ever do it again, but if I do, I like to have whiskeys that are representative of the types of sherry. Palo Cortado is one of the most difficult, so it's good to have a bottle like that to share as a representative, if it's a good representative of Palo Cortado. All righty, so I've been at this for almost 2 hours, just short of 2 hours. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and everyone who's watching on the replay. If you're watching on the replay, in the comment section down below, let me know what has been your best whiskey you had in 2024. Let me know in the comment section down below. Or maybe a best whiskey experience. What is the best whiskey that you have had in 2024? I will probably do my top whiskey of the year review before the end of the year. And I hope everyone has a happy new year and that 2025 will be even better than 2024. And Lord willing, that the doctors will be able to figure out what the heck is wrong with me in terms of my head. And we'll get this fixed by 2026. All right. Until next time, I want to say to everyone, Slanjiva.